Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Lamont Plaza, which is the heart of our cherished Mount Pleasant neighborhood. My name is Bill Emmett. I'm the president of Mount Pleasant Village. For those of you who may not be familiar with Mount Pleasant Village, we are one of 13 senior villages in the District of Columbia, part of a national movement that has been developed to facilitate aging in place by its members. The twist we take here in Mount Pleasant is to focus on aging in the community. Our members are people who've chosen to grow older here in Mount Pleasant because we love so much about it. The diversity of Mount Pleasant, of its residents, the lovely tree-lined streets, our wonderful Bancroft School, and the shops and businesses here on Mount Pleasant Street, among many, many other attributes. And it is maintaining and enhancing the vibrancy and vitality of this street that we want to highlight today. We believe that Mount Pleasant is, in many ways, an age-friendly community, appreciated by people of different ages and cultures, and we want to ensure it stays that way. We villagers who love to walk down the street to do our errands and meet our friends and neighbors want to be sure the shops and restaurants we patronize attract customers and remain viable businesses. We want to see affordable homes and welcoming and well-utilized parks on the street. In other words, we are looking to a future in which our neighborhood remains a place where all kinds of people at all stages of life can live happily, healthily, and safely. So we're very happy to have the mayor and many other government officials in our neighborhood today to see what's possible. And to say nothing further, I will just say it's my pleasure to introduce the mayor of the District of Columbia, Muriel Bowser.
Thank you, Mr. Emmett. Thank you. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and give Mr. Emmett a big round of applause. Representing all of the Mount Pleasant villagers. And I am pleased to be here with members of your government, and we are here to help. I want to especially acknowledge our Acting Chief of Police, Pamela Smith. Please acknowledge Chief Smith. We are grateful to Councilmember Pinto and the members of the Judiciary Committee on the Council yesterday advanced Chief Smith's nomination, and it will go to the full council next week. And earlier this week, the chief and I were together in Ward 4, where we announced new legislation that will address recent crime trends and give law enforcement more tools to hold criminals accountable and keep our neighborhoods safer. The Addressing Crime Trends Now, also Act Now Act, will create an environment that prioritizes communities and supports MPD's ability to hire, recruit, and retain great officers. So some of the changes proposed are just common sense. We are giving police new tools to prevent and enforce serious issues that I have heard from Mount Pleasant neighbors and businesses, and they include shoplifting and retail theft, loitering, and open-air drug dealing, and also people using masks with the intention of committing crimes like robberies and carjackings. So the new legislation, in addition to My Safer, Stronger legislation introduced earlier this year, we know are tools that we need to keep the city safer. And among other things, that legislation earlier this year that we introduced has given courts more discretion to hold defendants pre-trial who were previously convicted of a violent crime. We hear repeatedly from officers and community alike the frustration with arrests being made and seeing the same individuals back out on the streets. So I know that Councilmember Pinto is considering a permanent version of Safer, Stronger. She has committed to holding a hearing on the Act Now legislation in addition to legislation that she has also introduced. And so all of the legislation supports our number one priority, and that's keeping the city safe. So today we're on a community walk like we do across all 8 wards all year long, where we're looking and talking to neighbors and businesses, looking at streets, sidewalks, alleys, and trees, and talking about how we can work together to support safe and great neighborhoods. So with that, I think I'm going to take a few press questions, and I'll take community questions as we walk. Yes, ma'am.
Can you just explain a little bit more about how this new legislation will specifically help small businesses? I know a lot of what we see and cover is one person smashing a window and stealing, not necessarily an organized group of people committing the theft. So how does it help small businesses in that aspect?
Well, we're very focused. This legislation addresses organized retail theft where we think there are gaps in the law. In other parts of the law, of course, will deal with the individual shoplifter. But where we thought there were gaps were the organized, where one or more people were directing or participating with other people, the theft of large numbers and large value objects. So let me ask Deputy Mayor Pia to say a little more.
Sure. As the mayor said, we certainly want to address those larger groups that are acting in concert. But I would say on the individual level, one of the things that we added in that we saw a gap was being able to aggregate over time. So what you're talking about is where individuals are running in and out. As we work together with our businesses, a lot of times it is the same individual going in. So through our camera rebate program and otherwise, that will help us put together good cases. There's a provision in there that would allow us to aggregate value of $250, which is not a large amount, but it's what we see with deodorant and laundry detergent and those type of items over a 30-day period. And that really will help to address some of those repeat patterns of what we would distinguish between just shoplifting, which still has penalty, and that more consistent, organized going in and stealing from whether it's larger or small businesses.
Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
Mayor, I actually had a follow-up regarding the same incident. Spoke to a business owner today saying the same thing, saying sometimes she doesn't even feel like calling police because she says, do I call over a $14 product? Do I call over a $50 product? She's even considering, leaving altogether because she says, at the end of the day, I don't even have proof to get my insurance company to give me that money back. She's estimating like $18,000 if $50 is stolen on the daily. I'm sure business owners are used to these kinds of shoplifting, but what can we tell these business owners that are being targeted by these individuals, right? The grab and go kind of situations.
Well, I think you heard Deputy Mayor Pia talk about how we want to make some changes to the law. Say, yes, you have to call the police. Because one thing about calling is that makes sure that we're having a police officer respond to join police officers that are regularly patrolling Mount Pleasant and giving the chief, I should let the chief answer this question, giving the chief an accurate view of what's happening in any given neighborhood. So if you don't call, we may not necessarily know that there's a spike, that there's one individual, that there's a rash of individuals. So let me turn to the expert of watching crime trends and how to deploy personnel accordingly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And to address your question further, I actually went to Target today. I took a tour of Target myself. I met with some of the corporate officials. And to your point, they have to report the crime. It is something that we need in order for us, especially with this new legislation, in order, if it's the same individuals over a period of time, it gives our officers the opportunity to arrest these folks and hopefully have the U.S. Attorney's Office prosecute them. I think it's very, very critical and very, very important that we, as the Metropolitan Police Department, also work with our retail businesses and establishments to help them come up with a plan. And I committed today to working with Target on being able to help them and most of those folks in that area.
Okay. Yes.
So we spoke with a longtime resident here, and she said that she'd like to see more of a police presence in terms of police walking the neighborhoods and the sidewalks. Is that something that's feasible? If so, what is the timeline for when residents and business owners will see a noticeable difference?
Chief.
Well, effective July 17th, I shared with all of our district commanders and assistant chiefs that we are to conduct public safety walks once a week in every single district, and it has been happening. I would suggest or recommend rather that you reach out to your respective commander in your respective ward, and he or she will advise you on when we are having those public safety walks. So it's two-part for me, right? It's about relationship building, relationship policing, building relationships in our communities so that when we are in our communities and something is happening, that will not be the first time that you've engaged or interacted with that officer that's assigned to that PSA. So that's the intent behind that. Then the other piece is when our officers are assigned to a specific PSA, despite the public safety walks, I want them out of the cars, visible and present.
And more than that, let me just add that we are in the chief and part of all of the work that we're doing with new legislation that in my view, it is improving the policy environment for recruiting new officers. You've heard me say that we have seen our police numbers go down several hundred officers over the last several years, and we have to work very intently on building that up. And when we have the numbers of officers that we need, I believe that number is 4,000, and we'll putting together a plan to get there safely over many years. The chief's ability to deploy and have walking beats and foot patrols and bicycle and all of the other means increases. And it increases not just for Mount Pleasant, but every neighborhood in the district. Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
Your robbery suppression initiative and how it's bringing down robberies in the target areas, but robberies overall citywide have gone up in the time you've been acting. What's going on? Are you targeting the right areas?
We're looking at that on a weekly basis, at least twice a week. We look at the areas where there is an increase in robberies. And again, what this legislation will do, what we've seen is an increase in a theme of our juveniles and young adults using more mass to commit crime. And I think this legislation will give our officers the opportunity to be able to engage with some of these individuals in a constitutional way so that we can reduce crimes with our robberies. And they have gone up, but we're working very feverishly in different areas to continue with the decrease in that area.
Confirmation or the nomination hearing with the council on November 7th, what's the biggest accomplishment you can bring to them during that hearing?
I think the biggest accomplishment is our ability to stay engaged with our communities. The community members, they see us. I think the community sees us a little bit more present now. I think one of the most important things is to gain the support of the council to support us in the passing of some of this legislation.
Okay, yes.
Well, can anybody explain the exact penalty for this new retail theft?
Do we have, Apia, can you talk? The question was penalties
Yeah, what's the penalty
on
for
retail, organized retail theft.
organized retail?
So what we've proposed is it would be a theft one, which is considered a felony. So the penalty, the penalty for a felony theft one. Yeah.
Yes, please.
And just for your clarification, robberies have gone up since this time last year. But if I compare the first 90 days from April 17th to July 20th, the first 90 days, I came on July 17th, robberies have gone down 8%.
All right, let's take a look at Mount Pleasant. Thank you, everybody. And remember, community, if you have questions, please step forward.